This podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's new Patreon community, the Global Coffee Think Tank. Check the show notes or head to patreon.com/Mapper Forward to find out how you can become a member today. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. We are joined once again for episode 4 out of 5 of a series of 5 with Jimmy Canali. And we are talking about navigating an era of change in coffee. And in this specific episode, we're talking about how professional roles on the consuming end are going to evolve over the next decade. So, Jimmy, what are your thoughts about that?
I think we mentioned this prior about a specialty experience. I think, again, people are looking for more than just coffee. And farmers are looking for more than just coffee. So as a manager who's interacting constantly with customers, I also want to be aware of what are they looking for. And I think a big piece is diversifying what we do inside of a coffee shop and what a coffee shop does, or getting really good if we're finding success. And I'm doing exactly what my customers want. And so I think it's about listening. I think it's about curtailing the experience to each individual place. I think people do want stuff that's easy. So mobile order and pay with Starbucks and at my store is a really big thing. So how do I create an experience for that? I've heard chit chat in different places about using Bitcoin for pay. So I think there's a lot of angles you can look at, but I think what I get excited about is the idea of that specialty experience. How do we create a food program that's really good? The whole idea that food is medicine, I think, is really important. Remembering that the stuff we serve is healing in a way. It's bolstering. It gives courage to people. It gives satisfaction to people. That is the commodity, and that's what people want. They don't want just constant consumerism. They're going to get exhausted of the 7-second Instagram reels and TikTok. While those things will continue to be hyper popular, I think it's important to step back and go, how do we not get caught up in that fast of a pace? And so being part of a business that's very fast paced and people appreciate something quick, I think quick is different than fast paced. I think being able to create that experience and having multiple things that bring people in is important to revenue, so we can fund a lot of what needs to happen inside cafes. But also, I think people are looking for more than just coffee.
Where do you think automation sits in all of that? Because with our issues around labor shortages, that doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. And with inflation being a real player in the landscape right now, as well as climate change really influencing and affecting the availability of coffee into the future. One way that people are perhaps considering navigating this is by saying, I have to automate some of the features in my cafe or my roastery, and I've got to figure out where I automate and where I have staff. What do you think that role is going to look like? How do you think that's going to play into the equation?
I think for all the more well-known coffee professionals who go into shops and people try and dial in shots for them for an hour, I think they'll be super happy about that. But I think customers too, so I work on a Mastrena too. Most of the time at the roastery, we worked on Black Eagles, so semi-automatic, but you're still tamping shots and dialing in there. You dial in also on the Mastrena too, but it's really easy to track my consistency. So I think if it's consistent and it tastes good, that matters. It's also built so we have more time to connect with people, knowing that you only have a short amount, you have limited time to connect with people. So I think if automation helps with connection and helps with the experience, both in what you're tasting, then that's fine. I mean, I've gone to independent cafes throughout Denver, and it's so frustrating to be like, oh man, that shot was pulled bad. I bet they need training in it, where at a Starbucks, and I'm gonna give them credit, it's pretty consistent, and pretty also consistent. If it doesn't taste good, I can bring that easily back, and I know I'm gonna get something good the next go around. And so I think, yeah, if automation works in that, but on the other side is I think hyper craft is going to be really important too. I think there are going to be people who have the opportunity that have a destination type cafe, and I think it'll be a lot less than maybe the specialty coffee world wanted, but people are traveling because the food tastes good. But I think those places aren't going to be as popular as we thought 5 years ago. And so I
Mm.
think for them, it's probably a different story. And I would love to, work at the little farmhouse that's serving stuff grown on the farm and all that. And I think those type of places that connect people to land, and farming and crops are going to be important too in their food, and are going to be leaders in showing how much food is medicine, and something can taste so good it emotionally heals you. I think we
Hmm.
both probably have examples
Absolutely.
of going to Italy and tasting food. Like I know that food is medicine, and that belief is in my blood. Being at the roastery and having that magical experience, like that inspiration is medicine. And so I think there's many angles to this, but two of them is hyper craft where it matters, and the other side is automation and connection, because people want that consistent experience, but also to feel like they belong. That's my rant.
I I find that really fascinating because it sounds like if we're going to get hypercraft about this, um, the movement in the employee sector of our industry is I need to be valued more. So if we, and I definitely see what you're saying, and I see it being echoed through the industry around the world in that we bring a craft service to a small business and we want to be compensated for that service. So, how do we, as an industry, find the balance between compensating our craft or compensating our staff and rewarding them in the way that they deserve to be rewarded?
I God, that's a good question. I think some of it we can think of, some things I've thought of when I think about this. How do we honor tenure? So how do we like continue to have an educational program that grows the craft and the knowledge of our team, and is how do you build that into a decade? I have one employee that's worked with Starbucks for 20 years.
Wow.
A lot of what I think about is how do I honor that experience? But if I was building the program or the educational program or the staff experience, I would think a lot about how do I keep growing those skills that are going to build my end goal, which is creating that specialty experience for the customers, but also for my staff. So how do I maybe easy examples, well, not so easy, but stuff that's low hanging fruit, food program, mixology program. Maybe you have, you do herbs one night, you get a community garden. I mean, just
Mm.
think of the stuff that people, a lot of baristas crave craft knowledge. Latte art, obviously easy. How do you learn the seed to cup journey? And so how are we weaving in layers of knowledge and craft training, but it's multi-years. So Starbucks just got big into the Coffee Master program. Again, it has been a thing. And I know Coffee Masters is a competition, but with Starbucks, it's this black apron,
Hmm.
and it's a free five course, open for anyone through ASU. I'm gonna do the plug, and it takes you through. So like the last course is roast and blend, origin, ethical sourcing, brew and craft, and the first two are more introductory to like the coffee supply chain.
And that's open
And
to
so
anyone.
that's open to anyone, but some of what Starbucks is doing is if you're a year in, we'll pay for you to, in essence, like you can train to go through it. I think
Right.
I have that right. So
But you
I'm
have
bringing
to
a
be a
lot to my
Starbucks
team
employee to go
for
through
a
it.
year. No, you can be anyone.
Oh,
You obviously don't get the apron, but you can be anyone to
I think that's
certify them.
okay.
Yeah. No, you want it. Um, Everybody wants the black apron. It looks so sharp.
I do.
So that's one thing that like I get a lead through is like, how do I do that? And they're going to create a better customer experience. But I think we can get really strategic, especially companies that are independent, on how you do that. I think it's hard to kind of change your thinking on training, but I think you can do it where it's cost effective, where it's reciprocal, where you can make it so they can generate more revenue. I think of places like the roastery where there was 50 different roles you could do. So the retention was a little different because you might be learning the Princi, the bakery side and the food side for 6 months to a year, maybe more. And then maybe you're learning the coffee side or the retail side. And then you have mixology and then you have training. So there was a lot to learn. That's on a really big scale. On smaller scales, I look at places like Narrative, where I go in and there's so many different roles, but each one's is kind of an expert in its own thing.
Yeah.
So someone's brewing, someone's doing espresso, someone's on food. There's a lot happening. And so I think that's type of things that we can do to diversify the employee experience that flows over to customers.
And I think we've set ourselves up perfectly for the next episode and the final episode in our series, where we're going to talk about how leadership and management can work together with employees, how they can work with each other to cultivate a more harmonious workplace. Because I think that we have to accept that given the way that small business is going, we have to accept that automation is going to play an increasing role in the cafe space and in the roastery space. So how do we create harmony in the workplace with almost this new kind of presence, as well as keeping people feeling valued? So let's do that in the next episode. Perfect. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.